The day my world changed was like any other. I was sitting in my favorite corner of the cafe, the aroma of freshly baked bread mixing with the bittersweet scent of my black coffee. Outside, people bustled by, caught in their own stories, their own tangled webs of triumphs and failures. But nothing could have prepared me for what would happen next. It was a text message, an innocent enough ping that cut through the calm of my afternoon. The sender was Lisa, my childhood best friend, the person who knew everything about me, from the secrets I kept to the dreams I whispered when the world was asleep. But this time, the words on the screen seemed foreign, heavy with an unfamiliar gravity. "We need to talk. Can you meet me at the park?" Curiosity prickled at the edges of my thoughts. There was no way to guess the storm that awaited me. No reason to believe that this conversation would rip apart the world I had carefully built. I walked to the park, every step louder than the last, matching the uneasy rhythm of my heart. The sky was beginning to cloud over, as if it too anticipated something terrible. Lisa was already there, sitting on the old wooden bench where we had shared countless laughs and tears over the years. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile that felt too tight on my face. Lisa looked up, her eyes rimmed red and swollen, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. The silence between us expanded until it felt like an invisible wall. Finally, she spoke. "I need to tell you something. And I know this might change everything between us," she said, her voice breaking like fragile glass. The words that followed hit me like a landslide. She had been seeing Alex, my partner of 5 years, for months. Each sentence she spoke was like a dagger, cutting deeper than the last. The betrayal wrapped around me like a suffocating fog. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand why she would ever think this was okay, but my voice refused to come. All I could do was stare at her, my mind replaying every memory of our friendship and every moment I'd shared with Alex. The laughter, the trust, the warmth, all of it now felt false, hollow, meaningless. When Lisa stopped talking, the silence that followed was unbearable. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for my response. But I had none. I stood up, my legs shaking beneath me, and walked away without a word. Behind me, Lisa's sobs followed, a haunting soundtrack to the shattering of our friendship. The next few days were a blur. I avoided calls, ignored texts, and stayed locked inside my apartment, only opening the door for the delivery person dropping off takeout. It was easier not to think, not to feel. But pain has a way of creeping in, even through the cracks you try so hard to seal. One night, unable to sleep, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. There was one of Lisa and me at the beach, our arms wrapped around each other, faces sunburned from a day full of laughter. Another showed Alex surprising me with a bouquet of sunflowers after a fight, his sheepish grin saying what words could not. The betrayal twisted inside me, hot and fierce. How could they do this to me when they knew me better than anyone? How could love, something I once thought was unbreakable, turn so cruel? Weeks passed, and my anger became a companion, one that whispered in the quiet moments and flared up whenever I walked by the places we used to go. I heard from mutual friends that Lisa was a wreck but I pushed the thought away. I didn't care. Or at least, that's what I told myself. And Alex? He had tried to contact me at first, apologizing, explaining, begging, but I deleted every message without reading past the first word. But grief is tricky. It doesn't stick to one shape. It grows, shrinks, and shifts, leaving you feeling hollow one moment and furious the next. And so, one evening, when Lisa showed up at my doorstep, I didn't know what to expect. She stood there in the rain, shivering and drenched, her eyes searching mine for a flicker of what we once shared. "Please, let me talk," she whispered. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. We sat across from each other in the dim living room, shadows flickering as the rain pattered against the window. Lisa spoke first, recounting how guilt had eaten away at her, how she had tried to stop herself but couldn't. It wasn't an excuse. She made that clear. But she wanted me to understand her side, her weaknesses, her humanity. As I listened, I felt my heart soften just enough for pain to rush in again, this time joined by a sickening mixture of nostalgia and loss. I could see the friend who had comforted me through my first heartbreak, who had celebrated my promotions and victories as if they were her own. But that image was tainted now, buried under layers of hurt. "I know I've lost you," Lisa said, her voice breaking. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know that you were never just my friend. You were my family. And losing you is the worst thing I've ever done." The silence between us was vast, filled with unsaid words. Part of me wanted to reach out, to tell her that maybe one day we could rebuild what was broken. But the other part, the part that still felt like I was drowning in betrayal, held me back. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Tears streamed down her face, and she nodded, as if she'd expected this all along. When she left, the door clicking shut behind her, the apartment felt emptier than ever. It was the end of something beautiful, but also the beginning of something I hadn't yet named. The months that followed were hard. Grief changed, becoming less sharp, but no less heavy. Slowly, I started to pick up the pieces of my life. I took long walks by the river, journaled my thoughts, and with time, let some friends back in. I even saw Alex once. A brief encounter in the grocery store that left us both speechless. He looked different, thinner, older, burdened by his choices. I didn't stay to chat. I wasn't ready for that. Maybe I never would be. But in that moment, I realized that forgiveness wasn't for them. It was for me. Holding on to anger was like holding a burning coal. I was the one getting hurt. One evening, sitting under the golden hues of a sunset, I allowed myself to think of the future. Maybe it would be a future where forgiveness came naturally, or maybe it wouldn't. But it would be a future where I chose peace over pain, love over bitterness, and hope over regret. And that was a start.